Three alphas offered me $500,000 to be their contract husband for 90 days. I should have asked why they needed me so desperately. I should have wondered why their sense hit me like a freight train the moment I walked into that boardroom. But my brother was dying, and desperate omegas don't ask questions. We just sign. The thing about telepathy is that it's supposed to be a gift. Read emotions, sense intentions, stay one step ahead of danger. Except mine doesn't work like that. Mine is more like a radio I can't turn off, constantly picking up static from every anxious thought and desperate prayer within a 50-foot radius. And right now, the Seoul skyline glittering 40 stories below me through floor-to-ceiling windows was the least overwhelming thing in this room. Mr. Han Jiwoo, the voice belonged to Kang Minyuk, 29 years old CEO of Kang Industries, and apparently the spokesperson for this bizarre proposition. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Thank you for meeting with us on such short notice. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Cold, calculating, gray eyes that assessed me like a balance sheet. His scent hit me first, cedar and something darker, like smoke after a fire. It made my pulse stutter. "Let's skip the pleasantries," I said, crossing my arms. "Your assistant said this was urgent. Something about a business proposal." The second alpha shifted in his seat. Choi Do-ha, 28, co-CEO of the same empire. Where Minyuk was ice, Do-ha was barely restrained fire. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that tracked my every movement with unsettling intensity. His scent was different, bergamot and ozone, like a storm rolling in. "Direct," Do-ha said, lips quirking. "I like that." The third alpha hadn't spoken yet. Yoon Seojin, 27, sat furthest from me, his posture perfect, but his knuckles white where they gripped the armrest. Elegant features, an almost ethereal quality that made him look like he belonged in a historical drama rather than a corporate boardroom. His scent was the worst, jasmine and something sweet that made my stomach flip. He looked at me once, then away, like I'd burned him. My telepathy crackled to life, fragments of thoughts, emotions bleeding through. Can't believe he actually came. The scent bond is already... This is a mistake, we shouldn't... I shoved the voices down. Not now. "Mr. Han," Minyuk began, sliding a folder across the glass table toward me. "We have a proposition that will solve your current financial difficulties." My jaw tightened. "How do you know about my financial difficulties?" "We make it our business to know." Minyuk's expression didn't change. "Your brother, Han Jiho, 16 years old, currently hospitalized at Asan Medical Center. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The experimental treatment he needs isn't covered by insurance. You're 3 months behind on rent, working 2 jobs, and your savings account has exactly 43,001 in it." Heat flooded my face. Anger and humiliation warred in my chest. "That's invasive as hell." "It's thorough," Do-ha corrected, "and it's why we're talking to you." I should have walked out, should have told them to shove their proposition where the sun doesn't shine. But Jiho's face flashed in my mind, pale, exhausted, trying to smile when I visited yesterday. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. Minyuk leaned forward. "We need an Omega." I laughed, actually laughed. "There are Omega escort services for that. I'm sure you can afford the premium ones." "Not for that," Seojin spoke for the first time, his voice soft but carrying an edge. "For a contract marriage." The room tilted slightly. "Excuse me." 90 days, Minhyuk continued as if Seojin hadn't just dropped a bomb. "You would enter into a legal marriage contract with the 3 of us. Move into our residence. Accompany us to business events. Present as our committed partner." "All 3 of you?" My voice pitched higher than I intended. "That's not even legal in Korea." "It is in our pact territory," Do-ha said, "and it will be legally recognized for the purposes of the merger we're negotiating with the Nakamura Corporation. They're traditional. They want to see stability, commitment, family values." I stared at them. "So you need me to play house for 3 months to close a business deal?" "Yes," Minyuk said simply. "And in exchange?" 500 million won, transferred immediately upon signing, enough to cover your brother's treatment, your debts, and leave you comfortable for years." My breath caught. 500 million won. Jiho could live. We could breathe. I could stop drowning. There are conditions, Minyuk added, pulling out a thick contract. You would live with us. Attend all required events. Maintain the appearance of a genuine relationship. And, he paused, no bonding. No claiming. This is strictly business. We're not looking for a mate, Doha clarified, though something in his scent spiked when he said it. We're looking for a convincing performance. My telepathy flared. Their thoughts crashed into me. He can't know the real reason. The scent match is too perfect. How is that possible? I can't do this. I can't watch him leave after 90 days. I pressed my fingers to my temple, fighting off the mental static. Are you all right? Seojin asked, and there was genuine concern in his voice. Headache, I lied. Then, what happens after 90 days? Clean divorce. You walk away. We get our merger. Everyone wins. I looked down at the contract, then at the three alphas who were offering me everything I needed and nothing I wanted. My phone buzzed. A text. From my mom. Jiho's fever is back. Doctors want to try the treatment next week. We can't afford to wait. I picked up the pen. Where do I sign? Minyuk slid the pen toward me with 2 fingers, the movement precise and controlled. Everything about him was controlled. Even his scent, which should have been overwhelming this close, felt measured, deliberate. I hated how steady his hands were when mine were shaking. Page 7, section 4, he said. Initial here, here, and here. Full signature at the bottom. I scanned the dense legal text, my eyes catching on phrases like mutual consent, public appearances, and termination clause. My telepathy kept trying to push through, to read what they weren't saying, but I shoved it down. I didn't want to know. Not yet. Not when Jiho's life depended on me keeping my mouth shut and my questions to myself. I initialed the first box. Doha shifted in his seat. The movement drew my attention, and I caught him staring at my hand where it gripped the pen. His jaw was tight, tendons standing out in his neck like he was physically restraining himself from something. Problem? I asked, not looking up. No. His voice was clipped. Just surprised you're not asking more questions. I initialed the second box. Would it change anything? No. Then why waste time? I moved to the third initial. You need a prop. I need money. This is a transaction, not a therapy session. Seojun made a soft sound, almost like a laugh, but pained. When I glanced at him, his eyes were fixed on the window, his expression unreadable. The jasmine scent intensified for just a moment, then disappeared like he'd physically locked it down. My telepathy crackled. He doesn't understand what he's agreeing to. We're going to ruin him. I should stop this now before... Mr. Han. Minhyuk's voice cut through the mental noise. Are you certain you understand the terms? I met his gaze directly. Those cold gray eyes were searching for something. Doubt, maybe. Hesitation. Something he could use to justify whatever moral crisis he was clearly not having. I understand perfectly, I said. You get a convenient Omega to parade around for 3 months. I get enough money to save my brother's life. After 90 days, we pretend this never happened. Clean, simple, transactional. Transactional, Minyuk repeated, something flickering in his expression. That's what you wanted, isn't it? I clicked the pen closed and open again, a nervous habit I couldn't quite suppress. No feelings, no complications, just business. Doha leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at his lips. You're different from what I expected. What did you expect? A blushing, trembling Omega grateful for your attention? I raised an eyebrow. Sorry to disappoint. The smirk widened. I didn't say I was disappointed. Seojin finally looked at me then. Really looked. His eyes were a warm brown that didn't match the ice in his posture, and for just a second, I felt the full weight of his scent. It hit me like a physical thing, jasmine and sweetness, and something underneath that made my breath catch. Then it was gone, locked away again. You should know, Seojin said quietly. This will be more difficult than you think. I've worked 3 jobs while caring for a dying brother, I replied. I think I can handle playing dress-up at fancy parties. That's not what he means, Minyuk interjected. He pulled out his phone. typed something, then looked at me. The money will be transferred to your account within the hour. Your brother's treatment will be paid for by tonight. We'll arrange for the best specialists at Asan Medical Center. My hand stilled on the pen. Tonight? We don't waste time. Minyuk's expression was unreadable. Sign and your brother gets the treatment he needs tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. Jiwoo could start getting better tomorrow morning. I signed my name at the bottom of page 7. The moment the ink dried, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. A banking notification. 500 million won deposited into my account. 500 million won. The number didn't feel real. Nothing about this felt real. There's a car waiting downstairs, Minyuk said, standing smoothly. It will take you to the hospital. Stay with your brother tonight. Tomorrow, a moving service will pack your apartment. You'll move into the penthouse by evening. I stood too, still staring at my phone. You work fast. We have to. Doha was beside me suddenly, close enough that his scent wrapped around me like a physical touch. The Nakamura representatives arrive in Seoul in 3 days. We need you settled before then. Settled, I echoed. The word felt wrong in my mouth, like I was a piece of furniture being arranged. Seojun moved to the door, holding it open. His expression was carefully blank, but I caught the slight tremor in his hand where it gripped the handle. My telepathy flared without permission. 90 days and he'll hate us. He doesn't know what the bond will do. I can't watch another person leave. Pain lanced through my skull. I pressed my fingers to my temple, breathing through the psychic feedback. Headache again? Minyuk asked. And there was something in his voice I couldn't identify, almost like concern but sharper. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. My head was splitting, my hands were shaking, and I'd just signed a contract to marry 3 alphas I didn't know for money that felt like blood payment. But Jiwoo would live. That was all that mattered. I walked toward the door where Seojun stood. As I passed him, our shoulders brushed. Just for a second, just barely. His scent crashed into me like a tidal wave. Jasmine and sweetness, and underneath it all, something that sang to a part of me I didn't know existed. My telepathy exploded. Fated mate, fated mate, fated mate. I stumbled, catching myself against the doorframe. Seojun's hand shot out to steady me, his fingers wrapping around my elbow. The touch burned. Careful, he murmured, and his voice was strained. Broken. I pulled away like I'd been shocked, my heart hammering against my ribs. I'm fine, I repeated, though we both knew it was a lie. As I stepped into the elevator, I looked back once. All 3 alphas stood in the doorway of the boardroom, watching me leave. Minyuk's expression was unreadable. Doha looked hungry, and Seojun looked like a man watching his execution date approach. The elevator doors closed. I had 90 days. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong, apparently. The elevator descended smoothly, each floor, ticking past with a soft chime that did nothing to calm the chaos in my head. My telepathy was still screaming, still throwing fragments of thoughts at me like shrapnel. Fated mate. I leaned my forehead against the cool metal wall, trying to breathe through the psychic noise. This wasn't how it was supposed to work. I'd spent 24 years carefully avoiding scent matches, dodging overeager alphas at university, keeping my distance from anyone who might trigger the kind of biological response that could ruin my carefully controlled life. And now I'd just signed a contract to live with 3 of them, one of whom my stupid Omega hindbrain had apparently decided was my fated mate. Perfect, I muttered to the empty elevator. Absolutely perfect. The doors opened to the lobby. A driver in a black suit stood waiting, holding a sign with my name on it, because of course they'd already arranged everything. Mr. Han, he said with a slight bow, I'm Kwon. I'll be driving you to Asen Medical Center. I followed him to a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. The leather seats were buttersoft, and the interior smelled like new car and something else. Something that made my skin prickle. Cedar, bergamot, jasmine. They'd been in this car recently. I rolled down the window, needing air that didn't smell like them. Kwon pulled smoothly into Seoul traffic, navigating the evening rush with practiced ease. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Treatment scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow. Dr. Park will oversee personally. All costs covered. No signature, no name. Just efficient, cold information delivery. Very Minhyuk. Another text, different number. Moving service arrives at your apartment 9 a.m. Pack personal items only. Everything else provided. I stared at the messages, something uncomfortable twisting in my chest. They'd arranged everything, taking care of everything. All I had to do was show up and play my part, like a doll. A very expensive, very temporary doll. My phone buzzed again. This number I recognized. Mom, Jiho's asking for you. When can you come? I typed back, on my way now. And Mom, the treatment's covered. It's happening tomorrow. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. What did you do, Jiwoo? I looked out the window at Seoul rushing past, all neon lights and crowded streets, and life continuing like my world hadn't just tilted sideways. What I had to, I sent back. The hospital was the same as always. Sterile white walls, the smell of antiseptic barely masking underlying sickness. Nurses moving with efficient purpose through hallways that had become grimly familiar over the past 6 months. Jiho's room was on the 4th floor. I knew the way by heart. He was awake when I entered, propped up against pillows that made him look even smaller than his 16 years. His face lit up when he saw me, though the dark circles under his eyes remained. Hyung, he said, his voice raspy. Mom said something about treatment? I sat in the chair beside his bed, the same chair I'd occupied countless nights. Yeah, it's happening tomorrow morning. How? Jiho's eyes, so much like mine, searched my face. The insurance said, don't worry about it. I forced a smile. I got a new job. Really good pay. Jiwoo. He used my full name, which meant he wasn't buying it. What kind of job pays enough to cover experimental cancer treatment in one day? Smart kid. Too smart. The kind that comes with a very generous signing bonus, I said, which was technically true. And before you start, yes, it's legal. No, I'm not selling organs. And no, you don't need to worry. He studied me for a long moment. You're lying about something. I'm not lying. Also technically true. I was just creatively omitting information. I promise you, Jiho, everything's going to be fine. His hand, thin and bruised from IVs, reached for mine. You always take care of me. The words hit harder than they should. That's what big brothers do. Yeah, but... He paused, his grip tightening slightly. Who takes care of you? I didn't have an answer for that. Mom arrived an hour later, her nurse's scrubs rumpled from a double shift. She took one look at me, then at the paperwork the hospital had sent to her phone, then back at me. Kitchen. Now. We stood in the small family area down the hall, surrounded by vending machines and uncomfortable plastic chairs. Mom crossed her arms, her expression the same one she'd worn when I was 12, and she'd caught me sneaking out. 500 million won doesn't just appear, Jiwoo. I got married, I said, because there was no point hiding it. The paperwork would show up eventually anyway. Her eyes widened. You what? Married to 3 alphas. It's a contract marriage for 90 days. Business arrangement. They needed an omega, I needed money for Jiho's treatment. I said it all in one breath, like ripping off a bandage. Mom sat down hard in one of the plastic chairs. 3 alphas. It's legal in pack territory. Jiwoo. It's temporary, I continued. 90 days. Then we divorce, I keep the money, and Jiho gets to live. Everyone wins. And what do you get? She asked quietly. Besides the money? I thought about Minhyuk's cold assessment, Doha's hungry stare, Seojin's broken expression. I thought about the contract that bound me to them for 3 months. I thought about the telepathic scream still echoing in my skull. Fated mate. I get Jiho alive, I said. That's enough. Mom stood, pulling me into a hug that smelled like hospital antiseptic and the lavender lotion she'd used since I was a kid. You're too much like your father, she whispered, always sacrificing yourself for the people you love. Dad was a good man. He was. She pulled back, her eyes wet. And so are you. But Jiwoo, please be careful. Alphas like that, with that kind of money and power, they don't do anything without a reason. I thought about the way they'd looked at me, The way their sense had crashed into me like physical things, the thoughts I'd picked up despite trying not to. I know, I said, but I didn't. Not really. I stayed until Jiho fell asleep, his breathing steady with the help of oxygen. Tomorrow he'd start treatment. Tomorrow he'd have a chance. That was worth everything. My phone buzzed as I left the hospital. Another unknown number. Car will pick you up at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Penthouse address attached. Dinner at 7. Don't be late. No signature again. But the curt tone screamed Minhyuk. I looked up at the Seoul skyline. Somewhere among those glittering lights was a penthouse where 3 alphas waited. 3 alphas who just bought 90 days of my life. I had a feeling I'd gotten the worst end of this deal, but deals could be renegotiated. I turned away from the skyline, shoving my phone into my pocket. The night air was cool against my face, carrying the smell of street food from nearby vendors and exhaust from passing cars. Normal things. Real things. Not whatever insanity I just agreed to. My telepathy hummed with the usual static of a hospital at night. Worried families, exhausted staff, patients cycling between hope and despair. I'd learned to filter it out over the months of Jiho's treatment, but tonight everything felt too loud, too sharp. The kiss of jasmine still lingered in my senses, ghost scent that shouldn't be possible from a simple brush of shoulders. My phone buzzed again. I almost ignored it, but the preview made me freeze. You'll need formal wear for the Nakamura dinner Friday. Measurements? This number I didn't recognize either, but the tone was different. Less commanding than Minhyuk, less sharp than whoever had sent the earlier messages. I typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Seo Jun. Doha gave me your number, said you'd probably ignore messages from unknown contacts. Despite everything, I smiled. Doha wasn't wrong. He's very presumptuous, I sent. You have no idea. A pause then. The measurements? Unless you want to show up in jeans. Would that scandalize the Nakamura representatives? Probably. Minhyuk might actually have an aneurysm. I laughed, the sound surprising me. It felt wrong to be texting jokes with an alpha who might be my fated mate, who I'd be living with starting tomorrow, who I'd bound myself to for 3 months. But it also felt easy, natural, dangerous. I'll send measurements in the morning, I typed. After I remember what normal sizing is and not just whatever fits from the discount bin. This time the pause was longer. Jiwoo, just my name. But the way he typed it, I could almost hear his voice. Soft. Careful. Yeah? Thank you for agreeing to this. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Thank you? For what exactly? For being desperate enough to sign myself over like property? For having a dying brother and no other options? Don't thank me yet, I sent back. You might regret it. I already do. The message appeared, then disappeared, like he deleted it, but I'd seen it. And my telepathy, damn it, caught the edge of his thoughts even through a phone screen. Regret and longing and fear all twisted together. I shoved the phone away and started walking. The subway would take me home, to my tiny apartment that would be packed up and emptied by strangers tomorrow. One more night in my own space. One more night before everything changed. The apartment was dark when I got there. I didn't bother with lights, just collapsed onto my bed still fully clothed. Tomorrow, Jiho would start treatment. Tomorrow I'd move into a penthouse with 3 alphas who'd paid for the privilege of my company. Tomorrow my real life ended and this strange performance began. My phone lit up the darkness. Another message. Get some sleep. Moving day is exhausting. Seojin again. I should tell him to stop. That this familiarity wasn't part of the contract, wasn't what they were paying for. Instead I typed, bold of you to assume I sleep. Telepathy? I froze. How did he? Minhyuk's thorough, remember? We know about your ability. It's part of why we chose you. Cold washed through me. They knew. Of course they knew. They'd known about Jiho, about my debts, about every desperate detail of my life. Why wouldn't they know about the one thing I'd tried to keep hidden? Part of why, I sent back, my fingers tight around the phone. What's the rest? The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. That's not a text conversation. Get some Sleep, Jiwoo. You can't just drop that and tell me to sleep. Watch me. No more messages came. I glared at my phone like it had personally offended me, which in a way it had. Cryptic alphas with their cryptic messages and their money and their inexplicable interest in one broke omega with a dying brother and a broken gift. Sleep didn't come easy. My telepathy kept reaching out, trying to find them across the city, trying to understand what I'd missed, what they weren't saying. But soul was too big, and I was too tired, and eventually exhaustion won. I dreamed of jasmine and cedar and the feeling of falling. When my alarm went off, sunlight was already streaming through my window. 7 a.m. Jiho's treatment started in an hour. The movers arrived in 2. My phone had 17 new messages. 12 were from the moving company with instructions and inventory lists. Professional, impersonal. 3 were from Mom with updates about Jiho's pre-treatment prep and a reminder to eat breakfast. 2 were from Seojun. Moving company is Park and Sun Services. They're discreet. And then sent at 3 a.m. I'm sorry. I stared at that last message. Sorry for what? For the contract? For whatever reason they'd really chosen me? For the fact that my telepathy meant I'd eventually figure out all the things they weren't saying? I didn't respond. Just got dressed in my most comfortable clothes, made instant coffee that tasted like regret, and waited for the movers to arrive. They came exactly at 9 a.m. 3 men in matching uniforms with a truck that looked capable of moving an entire building. They worked with silent efficiency, boxing up my life in neat, labeled containers. Personal items only, Mr. Han, the lead mover said. Everything else stays as instructed. Instructed by who? Kang Industries, sir. Of course. I watched them pack my art supplies, my books, the few photos I had of Dad before he died. Everything that mattered fit into 4 boxes. Everything else, the furniture, the kitchen supplies, the secondhand everything that had filled this space, stayed behind. Like they were erasing me, preparing a blank slate. My phone rang. Minyuk, I answered. Let me guess, the car's early. Punctuality is a virtue. His voice was as cool as I remembered. How's your brother? The question surprised me. Treatment started an hour ago. So far, so good. Dr. Park is the best in his field. Jiho's in excellent hands. Thanks to your money. Thanks to our arrangement, he corrected, which begins now. The car is downstairs. I looked around my empty apartment one last time. 4 boxes. 24 years reduced to 4 boxes. I'll be right down. Jiwoo. He paused and I heard something shift in his tone. Something almost uncertain. This doesn't have to be unpleasant. You're paying me $500,000 to pretend to be your husband, I said. I think we left pleasant behind in the boardroom. Perhaps. Another pause. But it doesn't have to be painful either. The line went dead. I grabbed my jacket, took one last look at the apartment that had been home, and walked out. The door locked behind me with a final, definitive click. No going back now. Only forward. The elevator descended with the same smooth inevitability as yesterday. My 4 boxes were already in the moving truck. My life compressed and cataloged. Ready for transport to a penthouse I'd never seen, to live with alphas I didn't know. Quan waited beside the same black sedan, his expression professionally neutral. He opened the door without a word. I slid into the back seat and immediately regretted it. Their scents hit me like a wall. All 3 of them had been in this car recently. Cedar and bergamot and jasmine layered together, mixing into something that made my omega hindbrain sit up and take notice. I cranked the window down again. Are you well, Mr. Han? Quan asked, watching me in the rearview mirror. Peachy, I lied. Just not used to fancy cars. The drive through Seoul should have been calming. Morning light on the Han River, the city waking up, people starting their normal days. Instead, my telepathy kept crackling with interference. Fragments of thoughts that weren't mine, emotions bleeding through from somewhere close. Too close. By the time we pulled up to the building in Gangnam, my head was pounding. The structure was all glass and steel, reaching into the sky like it was trying to escape Earth entirely. A doorman in pristine uniform rushed to open the car door. Mr. Han, he said with a bow that felt excessive. Welcome home. Home. Right. The lobby was minimalist to the point of sterile. White marble, chrome fixtures, a single massive flower arrangement that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. Quan led me to a private elevator that required both a keycard and fingerprint scan. The penthouse occupies the entire top floor, he explained. Your fingerprint has been programmed into the system. How efficient, I muttered. The elevator rose so smoothly I barely felt the movement. Just the numbers climbing. 40 floors. 41. 42. My telepathy screamed. I grabbed the elevator railing as thoughts crashed into me, loud and chaotic and wrong. The test came back positive. He's a match. How is that possible? We shouldn't have brought him here. This is cruel. 87 days. That's all the time left. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to shove the voices out, but they kept coming, getting louder as we climbed higher. Subject 0924. The file said he died. He doesn't know what he is. We're monsters for this. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse. I stumbled out, my vision swimming. The space was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a panoramic view of Seoul, sleek furniture in blacks and grays, art on the walls that probably belonged in museums, and three alphas standing in the living room, watching me with expressions I couldn't read. Jiwoo. Seojun moved first, crossing the space with inhuman speed. His hands caught my arms, steadying me. What's wrong? His touch burned, not painfully, but like electricity, like something fundamental clicking into place. My telepathy exploded. Seojun's thoughts poured into me, unfiltered and raw. Memories that weren't mine. A hospital room, doctors in masks, pain, a diagnosis delivered in clinical terms. Terminal, genetic degradation. Bonding accelerates the process. Fated mate bond will kill me in 3 months. I jerked back, breaking contact. Don't touch me. Jiwoo, Minyuk started. No. I backed toward the elevator, my heart hammering. What the hell was that? What did I just see? Three of them exchanged looks. Silent communication I wasn't part of. Your telepathy is stronger than we anticipated, Minyuk said carefully. Physical contact seems to trigger it. That's not an answer. My hands were shaking. I saw Seojun. I saw a hospital, a diagnosis. You're dying, Seojun finished, his voice hollow. Yes. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. The fated mate bond, I whispered. It's killing you. Doha moved then, positioning himself between me and the elevator. Not threatening, just blocking. It's more complicated than that. Then uncomplicated, my voice cracked. You knew. You all knew what I was before you offered me that contract. You knew about my telepathy, about... What else? What else aren't you telling me? Minhyuk's expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight tension in his jaw. Perhaps we should sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want answers. And you'll get them, Minyuk said, but not while you're having a psychic episode in our foyer. He wasn't wrong. My head felt like it was splitting open. The telepathy was still firing, still picking up fragments from all three of them. But now I was trying to hear it, trying to understand. Subject 0924, genetic match. Impossible survival rate. My blood went cold. What's subject 0924? Silence. Heavy and damning. Jiwoo, Seojun started. Answer the question. I was surprised by how steady my voice was. What is subject 0924? Minyuk moved to a sleek cabinet, pulled out a tablet, and handed it to me. Perhaps it's better if you see for yourself. I took it with numb fingers. The screen showed a medical file, dense with technical jargon and scan results. At the top, in bold letters, Project Genesis, Subject 0924. Below that, a photo of me, but not me. A child, maybe 5 years old, unconscious on a hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere. And beneath the photo, clinical notes about genetic modification, enhanced omega traits, experimental pheromone matching. This is fake, I said. but my voice shook. It's not. Doha's voice was quiet, gentle even. Jiwoo, you're not. You weren't born naturally. You were created, engineered to be the perfect omega, the perfect mate. The tablet slipped from my fingers. The program was shut down 20 years ago, Minhyuk continued. All subjects were supposed to have been terminated. But you survived. Someone hid you, gave you to a family, let you live a normal life. Until we found you, Seojin whispered. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, tilting, breaking apart into impossible pieces. My parents, I managed. My brother. Not biologically related, Minhyuk said. The family that raised you, they were paid to take you in, to keep you hidden. They may not have even known what I was. The words tasted like poison. You mean what I am? An experiment. A thing you created. We didn't create you, Doha said fiercely. That program ended before we were even born. But when we found the files, when we discovered you'd survived, you saw an opportunity. Bitterness flooded my mouth. A perfectly engineered omega. Custom-made to bond with alphas. How convenient. It's not like that, Seojin protested. Then what is it like? I shouted, and my telepathy flared with the emotion. You bought me. You knew exactly what I was, what I could do, and you bought me like a product. Because that's what I am, right? A product. Subject 0924. You're a person, Minhyuk said, and for the first time his control cracked. You're Jiwoo, not a subject, not an experiment. You're real. Am I? I looked down at my hands. How do I know anything about me is real? My thoughts, my feelings, my attraction to... I cut myself off, but Seojin flinched like I'd struck him. Because he knew. They all knew. The fated mate bond wasn't fate at all. It was programming. I was designed for this. The thought echoed in my skull, louder than any telepathic feedback. Every flutter of attraction, every instinctive pull toward their sense, every moment I'd felt drawn to them wasn't real. It was code written into my DNA before I could even consent to existing. Say something, Doha said, and there was genuine fear in his voice. Jiwoo, please. I looked at him, really looked. Sharp features, dark eyes that tracked my every micro-expression. His scent was bergamot and ozone, storm warning wrapped in alpha confidence. My hindbrain wanted to move closer, to seek comfort in his presence. But was that me, or Subject 0924? I need air. I moved toward the balcony doors. Wait, Minhyuk stepped into my path. You're in shock. You shouldn't be alone right now. Alone? I laughed, and it sounded broken even to my ears. I've never been alone. You've been watching me, tracking me, probably since the moment you found those files. How long? How long have you known what I was? His jaw tightened. 6 months. 6 months. While I'd been drowning in medical bills, working myself to exhaustion, watching Jiho fade, they'd known. They'd watched. They'd waited. You could have told me, I said quietly, before the contract, before I signed away 90 days of my life. You could have given me a choice. Would you have believed us? Seojun asked. His voice was soft, wrecked. If we'd told you you were genetically engineered, that your entire life was a cover story, would you have believed us? Or would you have run? He wasn't wrong. I would have run. So instead you bought me. I pushed past Minhyuk toward the balcony. Very ethical. The soul's skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass. 40, 2 floors up, the city looked clean, ordered. Not at all like the chaos in my head. I felt rather than heard Seojin approach. His reflection appeared in the glass beside mine. He didn't touch me, but he was close enough that his scent wrapped around me like a physical thing. Jasmine. Sweetness. The pull of a bond I couldn't trust. I'm dying either way, he said quietly. With or without the bond. The genetic condition, it's degraded too far. I have maybe 3 months left. My chest tightened. And bonding with me accelerates it. Yes. So why? I turned to face him. Why pursue this? Why sign a contract for 90 days when you know you won't see the end of it? His eyes, warm brown and devastatingly honest, met mine. Because 3 months feeling alive is worth more than 3 years feeling dead. Something cracked in my chest. Not quite breaking, but fracturing, letting light in. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, I whispered. Probably. He smiled, sad and beautiful. But I've spent my whole life being careful, being controlled, managing symptoms and avoiding triggers, and never letting myself want anything too much because what's the point when you're on borrowed time? He took a small step closer, not touching, still giving me space, but close enough that I could see the pulse jumping in his throat. Then I saw your file, he continued. Saw that you'd survived something impossible, that you'd been hidden and protected and given a real life despite what you were created to be. And I thought, maybe I could have that too. Maybe I could have something real, even if it's temporary. But it's not real, I said, hating how my voice shook. This bond, this attraction, it's programmed. You feeling drawn to me isn't fate, it's genetics, science, cold calculated science. Is it? Seojun tilted his head. Because the files said you'd bond with any compatible alpha. Multiple matches, designed for pack stability. But I'm the only one who triggers the fated mate response in you, aren't I? I froze. Doha's compatible. Minhyuk's compatible. But they don't make your breath catch. They don't make your sense spike with recognition. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not touching. Only me. Why is that if it's just programming? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe, he said softly, maybe the programming gave you the capacity. But the choice? The specific person? That's still yours. My telepathy flickered, catching the edge of his thoughts. Not the clear stream I'd gotten from physical contact. Just fragments. Hope and fear and desperate, aching want. Please don't pull away. Please let this be real. Seojun, I breathed. He moved closer, his hand finally touching my cheek. Gentle, questioning. The telepathic connection slammed open. His memories poured into me. Not just the diagnosis, but everything. Childhood spent in hospitals. Parents who loved him but looked at him with constant grief. The moment he'd accepted he'd die young. And then, finding my file, seeing my photo, feeling something shift in his chest that had nothing to do with genetic compatibility and everything to do with hope. I want to live. I want to live so badly. My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, even though every logical part of me screamed to push him away. His forehead pressed against mine, both of us breathing hard. This is insane, I whispered. Completely, he agreed. You're dying. I know. I'm not even real. You're the most real thing I've ever touched. His lips were a breath away from mine when my phone shattered the moment with a shrill ring. We jumped apart like we'd been electrocuted. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking. Mom's number. Hello? Jiwoo. Her voice was tight, controlled in the way that meant she was barely holding it together. It's Jiho. You need to come to the hospital. Now. The world tilted. What happened? There's been a complication with the treatment. The doctors, they found something. Something in his blood work that doesn't match his medical history. They're asking questions I can't answer. My blood went cold. What kind of questions? Questions about his genetics, about whether he's really my son. I looked at Seojun, at Minhyuk and Doha, who'd moved closer during the call, at the tablet still on the floor showing subject 0924's file. All subjects were supposed to have been terminated. I'll be right there, I said and hung up. Minhyuk was already moving toward the elevator. I'll drive. No. I grabbed my jacket. This is family business. Jiwoo, Doha started. I said no. The words came out sharper than intended. You've done enough. You've paid for the treatment. You've bought your contract husband. You've told me my entire life is a lie. But Jiho is mine. And whatever this is, I handle it alone. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside without looking back. As the doors closed, I caught Seojun's reflection in the metal. He looked like I'd destroyed him. Good. At least one of us was honest about the damage we were doing. If you're hooked on Jiwoo's journey, hit subscribe. Things are about to get even more complicated, and you won't want to miss what happens when the truth about Jiwoo comes out. Trust me, the next twist will break your heart. Subscribe now. The elevator plummeted, and my stomach went with it. 42 floors of descent gave me exactly 90 seconds to pull myself together. 90 seconds to shove down the memory of Seojin's touch, the warmth of his breath, the way my entire body had sung with recognition. 90 seconds to remember that none of it was real. The lobby blurred past. I pushed through the glass doors into Seoul's afternoon heat, my hand already raised for a taxi. A black sedan pulled up instead. Kwon stepped out, his expression professionally blank. "Mr. Han, I've been instructed to take you wherever you need to go." "Of course you have." I wanted to argue, to insist on independence, but Jiwoo didn't have time for my pride. "Asen Medical Center, fast." The drive took 17 minutes. 17 minutes of my telepathy, reaching out without permission, trying to find Jiwoo's thoughts among the millions in this city. Trying to feel if he was okay, if he was scared, if he was nothing. Just static. Either he was too far or I was too panicked to focus, or something was very, very wrong. Kwon pulled up to the emergency entrance. I was out before the car fully stopped, my sneakers slapping against pavement as I ran. Mom met me at the nurse's station on the 4th floor. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her eyes reed-rimmed but dry. She'd cried already. Now she was in crisis mode, the same mode that had gotten us through Dad's death, through Jiwoo's initial diagnosis, through every nightmare our family had survived. "Where is he?" I asked. "Isolation room. They won't let me in." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Jiwoo, they're saying his genetic markers don't match our family history. They're saying it's impossible for him to be my biological son." The floor tilted. "What?" "The treatment, it requires genetic compatibility testing. They ran a full panel and..." She grabbed my arm, her grip bruising. "Tell me the truth. That job you got, that marriage contract, does it have something to do with this?" I couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, because I was already running the numbers, the timeline. Subject 0924, created 20 years ago. Hidden, given to a family. Jiwoo was 16. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not possible." But my telepathy was screaming now, picking up fragments from the doctors behind closed doors. 2 subjects. The files mentioned 2. Brother and sister, they said, but both male. Subject 0924 and Subject 0718. I pushed past Mom, past the nurses trying to stop me, and slammed through the isolation room door. Jiwoo looked so small in the hospital bed, even smaller than usual. He was awake, his eyes wide and terrified as doctors en masse hovered with tablets and scanners. "Hyung," he said, and his voice broke. "They're saying I'm not real?" I crossed the room in 3 strides, putting myself between Jiwoo and the doctors. "Get out." "Mr. Han, we need to complete the genetic analysis," one of them protested. I said, "Get out." My voice came out alpha command deep, vibrating with an authority I didn't know I possessed. They left. I turned to Jiwoo, my hands shaking as I sat on the edge of his bed. "You're real, you're my brother. Nothing changes that." "But the tests..." Tears tracked down his thin face. "Jiwoo, what's happening? Why don't my genetics match Mom's? Why do they keep asking about experimental treatments from 20 years ago?" I pulled him into a hug, feeling how fragile he'd become. "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. I pulled it out with my free hand, ready to throw it against the wall, but the message preview stopped me cold. "Minhyuk, I know what you're thinking. You're wrong." Me. "How would you know what I'm thinking?" Minhyuk. "Because I'd be thinking the same thing. But Jiwoo isn't subject 0718. My breath caught. I carefully extracted myself from Jiwoo's grip, moving to the corner of the room. Me. "Then who is?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Minhyuk. "That's not a text conversation. Come back. We'll explain everything." Me. "You've explained enough. Every explanation is just another lie." Minhyuk. "Not a lie. An omission. There's a difference." Me. "Not from where I'm standing." My phone rang. Minhyuk's number. I rejected the call. It rang again. I turned it off. When I looked back, Jiho was watching me with those two knowing eyes. The job, he said. It's not really a job, is it? I couldn't lie to him. Not now. No. And the marriage? It's complicated. He laughed, watery and weak. Everything with you is complicated, Hyung. You never just do things the normal way. Normal is overrated, I said, forcing a smile. Look where it got us. Fair point, he paused. Are they good to you, the alphas you married? The question hit harder than it should. Were they good to me? They'd paid for his treatment. They'd been honest in their way, even when the truth destroyed me. They'd given me space when I needed it and challenged me when I tried to run. And Seohyun had touched me like I was precious, like I was real. I don't know yet, I admitted. Ask me in 90 days, if we made it that long. A knock on the door. I expected a doctor, a nurse, maybe security to escort me out. Instead, Choi Do-ha walked in. He looked different outside the corporate armor. Jeans and a black sweater, his hair slightly mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. His scent hit me, bergamot and storm warning, and my traitorous hindbrain wanted to move closer. You turned off your phone, he said. No accusation, just statement. Observant. And you ran away, again. I didn't run, I snapped. My brother needed me. I know. He moved closer, his eyes on Jiho. That's why I'm here. Jiho sat up straighter, his gaze tracking between us. You're one of them, the husbands. Do-ha, he introduced himself with a slight bow. And technically, yes. Technically, Jiho repeated, amused despite everything. That's romantic. Your brother doesn't do romance, Do-ha said, but his eyes were on me. Warm, almost gentle. He does sarcasm and emotional avoidance. Wow, I said flatly. Married less than a day, and you already know me so well. I've known you for 6 months, Jiwoo. I just couldn't talk to you yet. The admission hung in the air. 6 months of watching, waiting, planning. That's creepy, Jiho offered helpfully. It really is, Do-ha agreed. But desperation makes people do creepy things. What are you desperate for, I asked. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something in his expression that made my breath catch. Not desire, not alpha possessiveness, grief. The same thing you are, he said quietly. Family, the real kind, not the one genetics dictates. My telepathy crackled to life, catching fragments of his thoughts. Memories of a different hospital room, a different diagnosis. Younger Do-ha standing over a hospital bed, watching someone die. Someone with my eyes. No, I breathed. You didn't know them. You couldn't have. I didn't, Do-ha confirmed, but my older brother did. The room spun. Your brother, I repeated slowly, had an omega. Had a son, Do-ha corrected. Subject 0718, who was told his omega birth parent died in childbirth, who was raised by my family until he was 6, and then disappeared into the foster system when my brother died. He took a step closer. His name was Choi Jiwoo. My knees gave out. I caught the edge of Jiho's bed, my vision tunneling. That's impossible, I whispered. I'm Han Jiwoo. My parents, my family, paid to take you in, to give you a new name, a new history. Do-ha's voice was gentle, devastating. Jiwoo, I'm not your husband. He swallowed hard. I'm your brother. The words didn't make sense. Brother. He said brother, but I could still taste his scent on my tongue, still feel the way my body had responded to his presence in that boardroom. Biology didn't lie. Omegas didn't react to siblings like that. You're lying, I said, but my voice shook. I wish I was. Do-ha pulled out his phone, swiped through photos, then held it out to me. This is my brother, Choi Dae-hyun. He died when I was 12. The photo showed a young alpha, maybe 22, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blue. The alpha's face was soft with wonder, with love so fierce it radiated through the screen. And the baby had my eyes. No, I whispered. He never told anyone who your omega parent was. Just that there'd been a mistake, that the bonding had happened too fast, that they'd separated before you were born. Doha's voice was carefully controlled. He died in a car accident 6 months after this photo. You went into foster care. Then you disappeared from the system entirely. Because the people who created me took me back, I said numbly. Hid me. Gave me to the Hans. We think so. Doha put his phone away. When we found the Genesis project files, when we saw subject 0718's photo and realized, he stopped, jaw tight. I've been looking for you for 8 years, Jiwoo. Since I was 20 and finally got access to my brother's personal effects. Since I found his journals talking about his son, his Jiwoo. My telepathy was screaming, but I couldn't shut it down. Doha's thoughts poured into me without touch, without permission. Memories of a brother who died too young, years of searching, the moment he'd seen my photo in the Genesis files and known. My nephew, my family, the only piece of Daehyun I have left. Why didn't you just tell me? My hands fisted in my jacket. Why the contract, the marriage, the whole elaborate setup? Because you would have run, he said simply, and because I'm not the only one who needs you. As if summoned, the door opened again. Minhyuk and Seojin stood in the hallway. They looked wrecked. Minhyuk's perfect composure was fractured, his tie loosened and hair disheveled. Seojin's face was pale, his breathing labored. You shouldn't be here, I said to Seojin. You should be resting. Can't rest. He leaned against the doorframe, his smile weak. Not when you're having a breakdown without us. How considerate. I turned to Minhyuk. Let me guess. You have another devastating revelation? Maybe I'm actually a clone? Or an alien? At this point, nothing would surprise me. Minhyuk moved into the room with measured steps. Not a revelation, an apology. That stopped me cold. What? I orchestrated this. His gray eyes met mine, steady despite the confession. The contract, the timing, even Jiho's treatment becoming available exactly when it did. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? The experimental treatment, Minhyuk continued, his voice flat with self-loathing. It's been available for 6 months. I blocked the insurance approval. I made sure you stayed desperate, stayed in debt, stayed exactly where I needed you to be. The room tilted. You let my brother suffer? You kept him from treatment that could have saved him months ago? Yes. One word. No justification, no excuse. Just yes. I moved without thinking, my hand connecting with his face in a slap that echoed through the sterile room. Minhyuk's head snapped to the side, but he didn't move otherwise, didn't defend himself. You monster, I breathed. He's 16. He's a child, and you used him as leverage? I know. You don't get to just say, I know, and make this okay. My voice cracked. You played God with his life to manipulate me into this contract. For what? For some merger? For your business? For them. Minhyuk's eyes cut to Doha and Seojin. Doha's been searching for you for 8 years. Seojin's been dying for 5. When I found the Genesis files, when I realized you were the key to saving one and giving the other what he needed most, I made a choice. A choice, I repeated. You call torturing a 16-year-old a choice? I call ensuring he got the best treatment in the world a choice, Minhyuk countered, and now there was heat in his voice, fire beneath the ice. Yes, I delayed it. Yes, I used it as leverage. But Jiho is alive, Jiwoo. He's getting treatment that wouldn't have been available through insurance channels. Treatment that's working. That doesn't make it right. I know. The words exploded from him. I know it was cruel. I know it was manipulative. I know I'm exactly the monster you think I am. But I do it again. Because Doha deserves family. Seojin deserves time. And you... He stopped, something breaking in. His expression. You deserve to know the truth, even if it destroys us. Silence fell, broken only by Jiho's quiet breathing and the beep of medical equipment. I was created to bond with alphas, I said finally, to stabilize packs, to be useful. And you 3 found the perfect use for me, didn't you? Doha gets his lost nephew. Seojin gets a fated mate for his last months. And you, Minhyuk? What do you get? His expression shuddered. That's not important. Bullshit. I moved closer, invaded his space the way he'd invaded my life. What do you get? Redemption, he whispered. My telepathy flared, catching the edge of his thoughts. Memories of another Omega. Someone delicate and kind who trusted the wrong Alpha. Who died because Minyuk hadn't been fast enough, smart enough, ruthless enough to save them. Your mate, I breathed. You had a mate. I had a fiancé, Minyuk corrected, who died because I prioritized a business deal over their safety, who trusted me to protect them, and I failed. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw past the ice to the raw wound beneath. I won't fail again, he said. Not Doha, not Seojin, and not you, even if you hate me for the methods. I do hate you, I confirmed. But I couldn't finish. Because my telepathy was showing me the truth beneath his words. The nights he'd spent tracking me, making sure I was safe. The anonymous payments that had kept our utilities on. The job referrals that had appeared in my email from former classmates I'd never met. He'd been protecting me for months, in his cold, calculating way. This is so messed up, Jiho said from the bed, his voice weak but steady. Like therapy 4 years level messed up. Despite everything, I laughed. Yeah, kid, it really is. Seojin pushed off the doorframe, moved to my side. His hand found mine, fingers threading, together. The touch sent my telepathy spiraling, but this time I didn't pull away. His thoughts poured in, not memories now, but present moment. The feeling of my hand in his, the scent of my skin, the desperate, aching hope that maybe, despite everything, this could be real. 3 months. I have 3 months to make you understand. 3 months to prove this matters. 3 months to live? I squeezed his hand. You're not dying. He smiled, sad and beautiful. Jiwoo. No. I turned to Minhyuk. You're brilliant, right? Cold and calculating and always 10 steps ahead? I try to be. Then figure it out. Find a way to save him. Because I didn't survive being an experiment just to watch my fated mate die from the bond that was supposed to save us both. Fated mate, Seojin repeated, his voice breaking. You're not fighting it anymore? I'm fighting everything, I corrected. But I'm done fighting alone. I looked at the 3 of them. My brother who'd searched for 8 years, the dying alpha who wanted to feel alive, the monster who'd manipulated us all trying to fix his own broken pieces, my family, chosen and forced and impossible and real. 90 days, I said. We have 90 days to fix this. All of it. Seojin's condition, Jiho's treatment, whatever the hell is happening with these Genesis project files. And at the end, Minyuk asked carefully, at the end, we decide if this is real or just really good programming. Seojin pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. It's real. Prove it, I whispered, and kissed him. The kiss tasted like jasmine and desperation. Seojin's lips were soft against mine, trembling slightly as his hand came up to cup my face. The telepathic connection exploded between us, but this time I didn't fight it. I let his emotions pour into me. Hope and fear and love so fierce it burned. Real. This is real? Please let this be real. I pulled back just enough to breathe. It's real. His eyes, warm brown and devastatingly honest, searched mine. How do you know? Because programming doesn't hurt this much. I touched my chest where something fundamental had cracked open. And this? This hurts in all the right ways. That's the worst romantic declaration I've ever heard, Jiho said from the bed, but he was smiling. Actually smiling despite the IVs and the medical equipment and the fact that his entire genetic identity had just been called into question. Romance is overrated, I said, not looking away from Seojin. I prefer honesty. Then honestly, Seojin said, his thumb tracing my cheekbone, I'm terrified of dying, of leaving you, of wasting whatever time we have left. Then we don't waste it. I turned to Minyuk. You said you'd do anything to fix this. Prove it. Find a way to save him. Minyuk pulled out his phone, already typing. Dr. Yoon at Seoul National University has been researching genetic degradation in alphas. If anyone can find a solution, it's her. I'll have her here within the hour. And the Genesis Project files? Doha asked. If there are more subjects out there, more people who deserve to know the truth, we find them, I said, all of them, and we give them what I never had, a choice. Minhyuk's fingers paused on his screen. That could take years. Good thing we're not on a 90-day contract anymore then. The words hung in the air. Seojun's hand tightened in mine. Doha's scent spiked with something that felt like hope. You're staying? Minhyuk asked carefully. After everything I did? I'm staying because of everything you did, I corrected. You're manipulative and controlling, and you made choices that weren't yours to make. But you also saved Jiho's life. You gave Doha the Kadiri family he's been searching for. You brought Seojun and me together, even if the methods were trash. I moved closer to him, close enough to see the carefully hidden vulnerability in his gray eyes. You said you wanted redemption, I said quietly. Here's your chance. Help me save all of them. The other subjects, the people who were experimented on and discarded. Help me give them the life they deserve. And in return, his voice was rough. In return, you get to be part of something real. Not a business deal, not a manipulation, just family. Something cracked in his expression. For just a moment, the ice melted completely, and I saw the man beneath, broken and brilliant and desperately lonely. Family, he repeated, like testing the word in a foreign language. Unless you'd prefer we stick to the contract terms, I said with a raised eyebrow. I'm sure the Nakamura merger is very important. The merger can wait. Minhyuk's lips quirked in something almost resembling a smile. I have more important things to attend to. Wow, Jiho said. Did the scary billionaire just choose people over profit? Someone write this down. I'm not that scary, Minhyuk protested. You absolutely are, Doha, Seojun and I said in unison. The moment broke into laughter, genuine and surprised. In a hospital room surrounded by medical equipment and the wreckage of revealed secrets, we laughed. Because sometimes that's all you can do when your entire world has been turned inside out. Dr. Yoon arrived 43 minutes later. She was brilliant and no nonsense, and within 2 hours of examining Seojun, she had a theory. The bond isn't killing you, she explained, her tablet displaying complex genetic sequences. It's trying to repair the degradation, but your body is fighting it because it doesn't recognize the omega markers as compatible. Because I'm engineered, I said. Precisely. Your genetic markers are too perfect, too exact. His body reads them as artificial and rejects the healing process. She swiped through more data. But if we can introduce a catalyst, something to convince his system that the bond is natural? How long, Seojun asked. To develop the treatment? 3 months, maybe 4. Seojun's hand found mine. I have 3 months. Then we work fast, Dr. Yoon said simply. And Mr. Han, I'll need samples from you as well. If there are other Genesis Project subjects, understanding your genetic makeup could help us find them. Whatever you need, I said. The next weeks blurred together. Seojun started treatment, his condition stabilizing even if it didn't improve. Jiho's cancer went into remission, his strength returning day by day. Minhyuk threw his considerable resources into finding other Genesis Project subjects, and we discovered 7 more. 7 people who'd been hidden, manipulated, used. We found them all, gave them the truth, offered them help. Some took it, some didn't, but they all got to choose. And Doha, my brother, he stayed close, making up for lost years with quiet presence and terrible jokes and a protectiveness that would have been annoying if it wasn't so desperately needed. You know, I said one evening, standing on the penthouse balcony watching Seoul's lights, when I signed that contract, I thought I was trading 90 days for money. Seojun joined me, his arm wrapping around my waist. He was stronger now, the treatment working slowly but surely. And now I think I traded 90 days for everything. Everything? I gestured to the living room, where Doha and Minhyuk were arguing about something trivial, where Jiho was curled up on the couch, healthy and whole and teasing them both, where Dr. Yoon's latest report sat on the table, showing Seojun's genetic markers finally stabilizing. Family, I said. Real family. The kind you choose. Seojun turned me to face him, his eyes bright in the city lights. The treatment's working. Dr. Yoon thinks I might have years instead of months. Good, Mayina, I said. because I'm going to need at least that long to figure out how to deal with three emotionally constipated alphas. Two? Doha called from inside. I'm your brother, remember? The emotional constipation is purely fraternal. That doesn't make it better, I called back. Seojin laughed, the sound free and unrestrained. I love you, Jiwoo. Subject 0924, Choi Jiwoo, Han Jiwoo. Whatever name you choose, whoever you decide to be, I love all of it. My telepathy hummed with the truth of his words. No programming, no genetic imperative. Just choice. His choice. My choice. I love you too, I said. Even though you're dying. I'm not dying anymore. Even though you're emotionally devastating. That's fair. Even though this whole situation is completely insane. Also fair. He kissed me, soft and sure. But it's our insane. Minyuk appeared in the balcony doorway. The Nakamura representatives are asking about rescheduling the dinner. Tell them we'll do it next month, I said. Family comes first. Something soft crossed Minyuk's face. Family comes first, he agreed. As the soul night deepened around us, I realized something fundamental had shifted. I'd spent 24 years being whatever other people needed. The good son, the responsible brother, the convenient omega. But here, with these three impossible alphas and my recovering brother, and a future full of questions, I got to be something else. Myself. Real, messy, complicated, and completely perfectly human. The contract had promised 90 days, but forever was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. Jiwoo's journey from a desperate contract to real love and found family is just one of many emotional stories on this channel. If you love the twists, the romance, and the unexpected family bonds, hit that subscribe button. There are so many more intriguing stories waiting for you. Stories about love that breaks all the rules, about family that chooses you, and about second chances when you least expect them. Subscribe now so you never miss the next unforgettable journey.